Hello, and welcome back to the next video in our Unity Tiny Platformer series. This will be part 2 in the series, where we will be drawing the map in with the Tilemap components. But before we do that, let's go get the free graphics assets that we will be using for this project. If we go to itch.io's game assets/free, we can go ahead and find this asset and this asset to use for our project. This will give us a nice idle, attack, run, jump, and various other animations. So, once you've downloaded both of your files, which I already have, you can go into your Unity Tiny project, make sure you're under your platformer folder that we created in the last video, go to Create, Folder, we'll call this Graphics, then go and locate the graphics assets that you downloaded from the itch.io website. Once you've found your graphic assets, go ahead and grab the tileset one from this project. We'll just be using the foreground tileset tiles for now, but if you want to use more of them, feel free to. We'll drag that into graphics and then drag our adventurer into graphics. Then we will go into our graphics folder, click on your adventurer tileset. We will switch this to multiple. Go to Full Rect for your mesh type, unclick on Generate Physics Shapes, turn your filter mode to point and your compression to none. We will click Apply, go into the sprite editor, go to Slice, Grid by cell size, and the cell size that we will need if we go to our browser, it says the sprite dimension is 50 by 37. Going back into Unity and back into Slice, we can put 50 by 37. The pivot at bottom and click Slice. Click on a few of your tiles, make sure they are all sliced correctly, and then go to Apply. Close out of there. Then go to your max size and put it at 1 above 512, so 1024. Then you'll want to go to your pixels per unit and put it to 18.5 so that the Y size of your character will be 2 units high. Click Apply, go to your tile set, switch your sprite mode to multiple, your pixels per unit to 16 because it is a 16 by 16 tile set. Switch your mesh type to Full Rect, unclick on Generate Physics Shapes, point on your filter mode, no compression, put this at 256, then go to your sprite editor, slice by grid size, put 16 by 16, the pivot in the center, and slice. Click on your tiles, make sure they are sliced correctly, then click Apply. Now we will go to our new entity group. We'll call this one, we'll rename the entity group in our platformer file by going to Entities and New Entity Group. We'll call it Level. And then on our level, right click, create empty, and on this empty object, we'll call it Tilemap Platform. Then we'll add a tiny component for a transform node, a tilemap, a tilemap renderer, a layer sorting, and a tilemap rechunk. On your transform node, add in the transform local position. Then when you can see that going to your tilemap platform, you have your grid for drawing with your tile palette. If we open up our tile palette tab, which if yours is not already right here, you can go to Window, 2D, Tile Palette, which should open the tile palette window. Once you're on your tile palette window, we can create a new palette. We'll call it Foreground Tiles. Click Create. We'll put it in a folder inside of our platform called palettes, select the folder, create the palette, go into your graphics folder, drag in your tile set into the tile palette, then go to your platform, create a new folder, call it tiles, select that tiles folder, wait for Unity to create the tiles with all of your tile assets. In normal Unity it seems to run a lot faster, but in Unity Tiny it seems to go pretty slow. Once your tiles are created, you can go ahead and select whatever tile you want and draw it straight onto the scene. But, of course, we don't want to manually click on every single tile, placing them one at a time. That's time consuming and more work than what we should have to do. Of course, you could use this, select more of them, and then place it as one giant block, but that's still more work than what we would want to have to do for when we would want to go through and fix the areas that are not correct. So, a way to be able to draw these tiles onto the screen easier is if we go to the GitHub for the Unity Technologies 2D Extras, which gives us a coordinate, line, random, prefab, blah 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 blah, lots of different tiles, brushes, and others. We can download that to the 2D Extras master, go into that, go into Assets, bring the Tilemap folder file into our Unity Tiny project, drop it into the Platformer folder, this one actually probably doesn't need to be inside your Platformer folder because you'd want to be able to use it for all of your Unity Tiny projects, and these files don't need to build with your Unity Tiny. They are just editor files, so drag it outside of your Platformer project. Now, once you have this imported, you can go back into your Platformer project. We'll create a new folder. We'll call this Ruletiles. Go into here, create a new Ruletile, and we'll call this Platform. On the Platform Ruletile, you have a default sprite, default game object, which we will not be using, default collider, which I do not think is currently working within Unity Tiny, and the tiling rules. So if we go into our graphics, we'll make the icons larger, expand the tile set, and then we can start setting up our rule tiles. First, let's erase what we've already drawn onto our tile palette. The easiest way to do that is to click the rectangle tool, hold down Shift, drag over your tiles, and let go, and then let go of Shift. Now, going back into your rule tile, then your graphics folder, we can set up a default sprite, which will use the middle sprite. And now, if we go to the tile palette, go into the rule tiles, drag this platform tile onto here, you'll see the tile with the default sprite will appear onto your tile palette, and you'll be able to draw it on. But it's still not really doing anything more than what it was before. So let's add some rule tiles. We'll make this like this so we have something to look at while we're working. The first tile, which is going to be the top left corner, is going to say, does it need a tile above it? No, there should not be a tile above it. Should there be a tile to the left of it? No, there shouldn't be. What about the top left? No. Let's see, let's go over, then up. There should not be a tile there either. There only needs to be a tile here, here, and here. If we go down and over, there should also not be a tile. Let's add our next tile, which will be the middle tile, this one. Should there be a tile above this tile? I do not think so. There shouldn't be any tiles at all on the top row. There should be one next to it and one on the next side of it, and there should be ones all below it. Our next tile will be the top right corner, which should be pretty much the opposite of this tile. So no tile here, no tile here, no tile in any of these places, but only in these places. we'll move down to the next row of tiles, which starts right. If you go into your folder for the foreground tile assets, you can open it up to see better what all of the tiles look like. So you can find the next row. We are looking for this tile. Going back into your project, you can look and find that tile, which is right here. You can confirm that it's this tile by clicking on it and seeing it is an edge tile, and it is the next tile after this one. If we go into here, you'll see that the tile before this one is this one. So we are sure that this is the next tile we are working with. Go back to your Ruletile, into your graphics folder, then drag and drop your next tile in, which is the side tile. Now let's set up the rules. There should not be any on this row. There should be one above, one below. Should there be one here? Yes, yes, and yes. The next tile will be this one, which is the middle tile, which goes in the middle area. So there should be one on all sides of our tile. Now, another thing you can do with the middle tile is on your output, you can go to random, set your size to 2. We can drag in for the second spot this tile. Now you can change your noise to randomize the location of where these tiles will generate in at. Moving on, we'll add in our next tile, which will be the right middle side tile. For this one, it will be the opposite of this tile. It needs one above, one on all of these sides, but none on these sides. Let's now add the bottom one in. The first bottom one being the bottom left, which starts right here. For the bottom tile, we need one above, to the right. In all of these areas, the same as these, but facing a different direction, we'll change these all to red. Now our bottom left tile shows up correctly. Moving on to the next tile, we'll use this tile, which is the bottom middle tile. So the opposite of this one, we'll close off all of these and say that it needs one on all of the other sides. The last tile we need to do to create a perfect square is the bottom right tile, which for that one is this tile, and for here it is the opposite of this one. So we need one here, here, and here, but no tiles in any of these spots. After doing that, you can see we have a Ruletile that we can expand on. It still needs some editing to make certain things nicer, like this middle area, but if you just make it fatter, you can see that it fixes those problems. But we could still use one for right here. So, if we wanted to fix these problems, let's expand this to look a little different so that we can always see the problem that we are trying to fix. Okay, going back to our Ruletiles, we can figure out which tile we need to make this look correct and then add it in. So the easiest way to figure out how to fix the tiles that we have messed up is if we go into the file where we downloaded our tiles from, you can open the tiles examples. Then when looking at the tiles examples, you can see which parts don't look right and which parts should be there. You can also look at your tileset file to see. But the first thing we need to fix is, if we look at our tile map, this one is not the correct tile. What we need is this tile. So if we edit this to a specification that will also allow for this tile to show up here, we can get it working. So why is it not showing this tile right now? Well, we have it saying no tiles on this row, but there's a tile here. And if we go down here, there's a tile here. So if we just turn these two X's off, you'll see it fixes those two sides. If we go to the wall on the other side, which is this one, turn the X's off also, it'll fix that. Now, the same for this one and this one, which is supposed to be this tile, which is this tile. You can turn this X off and this X off. And now, through assumptions, we can assume that we should probably turn those two X's off also. But we still have some problems. This tile, this tile, this tile, and this tile is not the correct tile. But what tile is it supposed to be? We can look at our tile palette, and these tiles look like they would fit pretty well. But if we tried to look at it right now, you couldn't be too sure. So how could we be positive? You can go to your level, create an empty, go ahead and set up a new tile map. We'll just leave the name as entity. Add your node and the other tile map components that are required to make it work. Now that you have that set up, you can go into your tile palette, change the active tile map to your new one that you created, which is called entity. Now that you're on the entity tile map, you can select a tile, we'll do this one, and when you hover over this tile map, it will not erase, but it will add over it as an overlay. So you can take this tile, move it over this tile, and see that tile looks like it is the tile that belongs there. You can test the other tiles too to make sure these are the correct sets on the tile set that belongs in this area. Now that we've confirmed that this is the tiles that we need for this area, we can get rid of the entity tile map that we set up, which automatically switches the active tile map back to the Tilemap platform. Go back into your Ruletile, click on your inspector, and we need to add 4 new rules. Adding a new rule, we'll go back into the graphics folder and find the tiles that we need. The tiles that we needed were these 4. These 4 tiles are on the first row and the second row of tiles after these set. So we can go into here, we see the first tile, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. Going into here, you can see that the tile we need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is the first one that we will need. This tile, you can see, belongs right here. So if you look at the required tiles for this one to show up, it needs one below it, needs one here, needs one in all of these spots, and one next to it, but no tile here. Now, this is the same format we need to follow for the other 3 tiles. Drag your next tile in, put your X here, put your green marks in. The X always follows where your empty spot on the tile is. Go ahead and add your next one in, find the tiles that you need, which I believe are these 2 tiles. Then add your X in the direction that it should be facing, which for this one should be right here. Add your greens in, and then add the last tile, which is this one, with the X facing this way. We actually have the wrong tile right here. If we switch this tile out with tile number 6, we'll have the correct tile. So now that we have our Ruletile set up, we can go ahead and draw the platform how we actually want to. So erase all of your platform. Go into your tile palette, make sure you have the Ruletile selected. Also go into your camera, we'll change the camera size to the camera size of the project that I showed you in the previous video, which on that project, we're using a camera size of 10. You can see the tile is half the size of that it was previously. We'll go ahead and start to draw what we want on the screen. We want a little platform here. Then we're going to have a bridge going across onto another platform here. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and add our background images in so we can start setting up our layer sorting so we don't have to redo it once we add in the background images. So go back into the folder where we got our tile set sprites, go back a folder, go into backgrounds, and these 4 background images will drag into the graphics folder of the project we're working in. Then select all of the background images that you just imported, put the pixels per unit at 16, the mesh type at full rect, turn off generate physics shapes, put your max size at 512, put filter mode on point no filter and compression to none, click apply. Now we have our 4 background images created. Let's create a empty object to store them under. Background sprites is what we will call it. And under the background sprites, we'll create a 2D object called a sprite. You'll see we get a white pixel. If you want your Tilemap paintbrush to go away, just go back to your Tilemap and click on whatever object you currently have selected. The grid and everything will go away. Now on this sprite, we'll call this Clouds Back, because I believe that is the furthest back image that we'll need to display. And on Clouds Back, drag your Clouds Back sprite. We can recenter the camera so that the Clouds Back looks more correctly on the screen. Then if we add in a layer sorting component, put this layer on 0, we'll just go to this and boost its layer to 10 really quick. We're actually going to redraw the tile map to be in a position where we would prefer it to be now that we've repositioned the camera. So let's just drag this all the way across, erase this bottom set, get rid of that one sticking off the edge. Let's add a middle area right through here. We took a little too much off, so let's add a little more. Take one section off, I think, a couple sections off. Add one more section here. This is all nitpicky stuff, it doesn't really matter. And now we have the project looking a little better with some background clouds. Let's add the foreground clouds. If we just duplicate the Clouds Back, go back to your Clouds Back, add in the layer or sorting group or layer sorting, remove the sorting group, make sure your order's on 0 for that one. Clouds Back, let's add in another layer sorting, put its order on 1, change the image to Clouds Front, change the name to Clouds Front. Now you can see we're starting to get a nice image, and if you go to Clouds Back, you can see that they have a nice parallaxing effect that you can manually move around. Let's add in the next image, which will be the BG Back. So just duplicate your Clouds Front, we'll call it BG Back. Put your BG Back image in. Put your order on 2. Duplicate that, call it BG Front. Put your BG Front image in, and the order on 3. Now if we go back into our tile palette, we can remove about a layer of our tiles. Let's expose a little bit of grass, shall we? And it looks like I can't be for sure because I'm pretty sure I did it, but I don't remember. I'll know when I'm editing the video. There's an error in the tile maps right now where sometimes when you erase objects, they just decide they want to come back. They don't want to stay erased. And when that happens, it can be pretty irritating getting it to not happen. The easiest way to get it to not happen once it starts happening is to just delete the entire tile map entity and re-add it, because you're going to be fighting with it to get it to not do it. To see if it is currently messed up or not, you can actually save your project. Just go to any other tile map project. I don't think we actually have one opened in here, so maybe we can just reopen the same project. That should work. And if it's not erasing correctly, the tiles that weren't erased correctly will be re-added to your scene. But it looks like it did erase correctly. We can even click on play to see whether or not it's re-adding the erased tiles. And it looks nice. Besides, it looks absolutely disgusting, right? Look at the quality of these sprites. Everything looks pretty bad. So how do you get the sprite quality to be better? Because nobody wants to even play a game that looks like this. It looks worse than old Sega games. Like, they had old graphics, but at least it was consistent without these weird pixelations and lines, right? So let's fix that. The easiest way to fix that is to use a sprite atlas. So to create a sprite atlas for our objects, we'll go to the graphics folder, create a new sprite atlas. We'll call this foreground sprites. Go to your inspector. Let's change a few things on here. No rotation, no type packing. Put this on point, no compression. Now let's add objects in. The only object we want on this one is the tile set. Let's click Pack Preview. It packed our objects nicely. Let's add a little more padding. If we reduce the padding, does it reduce the size of our asset? Nope, it's still 256 by 128, so let's increase the padding. Now, you can see that all of our tiles have disappeared. Easiest way to get them back is to click on your Tilemap platform, deactivate it, and reactivate it. You can see that our tiles are back. You can still see lines in between the tiles, but if you click play, go into your browser, you can see that the lines have disappeared and the quality isn't perfect yet, but is a lot better than what it was. Let's go back into our project and see if there's anything else we can do to increase the quality of our sprites. Now to fix the blurriness of our image that we have left besides the tile snapping problem, we can go into the project settings by going to platformer, or actually go into your actual project settings, which has a new section for Tiny. In this new section, click on Tiny, then where it says default texture format, switch it from JPEG to source. Now, clicking on play, you'll see that the quality of your images has gone up dramatically. There we go. We can go ahead and start adding decorations and our bridge in now. Going back into Unity, we can go to the Tilemap platform and create a new tile map. We'll call this one Tilemap Foreground. So Tilemap Foreground. We'll add the transform node. We'll add the tilemap renderer, the layer sorting, and the tilemap rechunk. So let's start setting up the layer sorting correctly. We have this should be layer 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the platform will be 4. Our player will stand on layer 5. The foreground will be layer 6. But we also need the background layer, so this should actually be 5. Our player will stand on 6, and the foreground will be 7. Let's go ahead and create the tilemap background also. Create empty, we'll move it above the tilemap platform, but outside of this. Close this, move it here, call it tilemap background. Add the components that you need. We already have the transform component. Let's add the tilemap. Let's add the tilemap renderer, the layer sorting, and the tilemap rechunk. So the background layer needed to be on layer 4. Let's check to make sure that's right. Yes, because the BG front, which should be behind the tilemap background, is on 3, 4, 5. Our player will be 6. The foreground will be 7. So let's start drawing things onto these new layers that we've created. We are going to add a bush in first. Go to your tilemap background. If you want to add rule tiles for your bushes, feel free, but I'm just going to select them like this and then paint them straight onto the map. Make sure your active tile map is the tilemap background. I'll put a bush here. Let's put another bush here. Now on the foreground, we'll add some grass. by selecting our grass tiles. Let's just grass up the entire area here by doing it like this. Like I said before, if you want to use rule tiles for your grass and your bushes, you can easily set up rule tiles, but we're going to manually place them. Let's add some grass here also. Put the edges of your grass on. Oops. Alright, now we have grass on our tiles. Now, let's go back to the background tiles and add in a bridge on the Tilemap background. You could probably make its own bridge tile if you wanted to, but the background layer will work fine for this scenario. We now have our bridge added in. Let's add in some fencing. The fencing will also be on the background layer. Add some fence here. And we'll put a spike right here. It's a little different from the project I showed you in the last video, but that's okay. I'm sure what you're doing may not be exactly what I'm doing. Now that we have our tile map drawn, we can start adding in the character and the scripting for the character movement and the character jumping, which will be in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Have a wonderful day. Alright, this is an after video edit to show you a bug that I don't want you to have to deal with and figure out on your own. Because at the moment, Unity is working hard on releasing C# for Unity Tiny, which will be amazing when it gets done because it will increase performance and workflow dramatically, which is what we are hoping for. And it's an environment we are more used to working with normal Unity. So, for the time being, we just have to kind of deal with the bugs that we have inside of Unity Tiny. This isn't a bad bug once you figure out how to work around it, but figuring out how to work around it the first time can be a little annoying. So I wanted to just go ahead and show you guys what the bug is and what you can do to avoid it. If we go to our Tilemap background, which has the bush, the bridge tops, and this other bush. We're going to disable the Tilemap platform and the foreground, so this is a little easier environment to work with. Now on the background, we're going to go in and erase this bridge completely. So all we have is this bush, these spikes, this row of fences, and this bush. So when we play the game, the only thing that should show up are these objects. Let's click play and see what shows up. You can see that absolutely nothing has shown up, and you're probably wondering why. And if you've ran across this bug while working on your own workflow in your own game, it's probably driven you crazy figuring out what exactly is going on. Well, it's pretty simple actually. All you need to do is make sure somewhere on your tile map you have objects that are at least 2 tiles wide and 2 tiles high. So we can just go somewhere down here and we'll just place objects as I've just described. We'll just place this little square of grass. So as you can see, we have an object here, 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 and here. So we have 2 objects wide and 2 objects high. Now, if we click play, these objects should now all render correctly. You can see that the objects are now rendering correctly. This is a pretty strange bug to have to work around, but I just wanted you to be aware so you knew what was going on when your objects started to randomly disappear.